What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk on the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast that is a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, coming to you with another episode, this time previewing the Packers matchup against the undefeated Minnesota Vikings as they sail into Green Bay for the Packers first and the Vikings first NFC North matchup of the 2024 season. And joining me to talk about this reignition of the rivalry is my lovely co-host Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how are you doing, buddy?
How art thou?
Romeo?
Thou well.
Doing good. Doing good. I'm anxious for this week. I think this is going to
Mm.
be an interesting game. I'll put it that way.
It's got a lot of spice. It's got a lot more spice to it than I had anticipated because I thought the Vikings were going to be dog crap this year, and they are undefeated. No one could have anticipated that happening. I believe they beat
The Giants, the Niners,
49ers.
and the Texans. So
Yeah, two
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 pretty
victories that are
darn good teams.
one and a half, maybe.
Sure. I'm not even going to ask who the half is, but
Oh, you know it.
I don't think I do.
Yeah, you do.
You,
Come on.
you're calling the 49ers.
Audience, say it with me. 49ers. There's a lot of things going on. Christian McCaffrey's going to Germany. Good luck with that.
He's already in
Good.
Germany.
He's already in Germany.
Yep.
Well, gazoon tight.
Been there for like a week now, I think.
Auf Wiedersehen.
I mean, yeah. They're
Yeah.
injured to all get out. Whether or not they're
Yeah.
bad is, I guess, to be TBD.
Well, they might be bad just because they're injured till get out, as
Yeah, and the fact that Brandon Ayuk got 12 targets and caught like six of them or something, and
yeah.
instead
Just a lot of
Let Jawan Jennings do all the work for him.
weird vibes going out, but Minnesota has capitalized on a good start to the season, and I believe if you don't subscribe to GSPN Premium, one, what are you doing? Two, I believe they had the lowest over under, if not tied with New England. It was like second
Yeah.
lowest, and it was like 4.5
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty
for
sure.
the over unders that we did for that podcast. I went under thinking that they're gonna be bad, and they're
Yeah.
approximately 1 to 2 games about to clear that. So
Yeah.
goes to show you don't know anything, Jordan Tresky.
Yeah. I think it goes to show that there's a lot going on behind the scenes of a football team that you just don't really expect. And I think it also goes to show, which we'll talk about a little bit, just how good coaching staffs are nowadays when they can get their hands on players and rejuvenate them as well. Say, but before we
Absolutely.
get into the Vikings game, we gotta hand out cheeses for the Packers win over the Tennessee Titans this past Sunday. There's a lot of candidates, and Jordan and I had initially agreed upon three earlier in the week, and I have since forgotten them. And I honestly don't know how I'm gonna pick three out of this list, so it's gonna be a discussion. Starting off with Malik Willis, 13 of 19, 202 passing yards, a touchdown, a 120.9 passer rating, along with 6 carries, 73 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. Next up is Jair Alexander, who had 5 tackles, an interception, a pick six. Well, that was the pick, that was an interception, and a pass breakup. Good for an 89.2 PFF grade. Devontae Wyatt is next up, 4 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 pressures, and 3 QB hits, a 78.7 PFF grade. After him is Kingsley Enagbare, 4 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, a sack and a half, 3 pressures, 2 QB hits, and the forced fumble. And then after him is Preston Smith, 3 tackles, 2 for a loss, 2 sacks, 4 pressures, and 2 QB hits. Xavier McKinney, 5 tackles, another interception, and a PBU. And last is Emmanuel Wilson, my king, 12 carries, 50 rushing yards, 2 receptions, 35 receiving yards, and his first career touchdown. Jordan, there's a lot of guys here
Yes,
that deserve a cheese.
a lot of guys.
I think I remember our agreed upon three, but we're going to have a discussion. I think for sure Devontae Wyatt. is kind of where I'm at. And I think that's really it on for sure.
What?
Yeah, because the other three that
For
I
sure?
the other three that I have can go in between one another.
I
So,
think the locks for sure, from my perspective, are Malik Willis
yep.
and Jair. I
Okay.
think pick six automatically gets you cheese.
That's a fair point.
Say cheese.
Um, so here's my thing. I have four locks, if we're being honest, which is not how we do this. And it's Malik Willis, Jair, Devontae, and Kingsley Enagbare.
Yes.
Like they all just played so well. Enagbare has been on a tear the last couple of weeks. Like since the season started, honestly, he's been playing very well. And I feel like this is in the same way we handed out Xavier McKinney's cheese in week 2 for having 2 interceptions in 2 weeks, kind of thing. I just feel like Enagbare deserves a cheese at this point. He's been playing his ass off.
I
But
don't disagree. I think this is where it gets really tough. We limit to our three. We are judicious with our three. Some weeks are harder than others. This is harder for the kind of best reasons rather than having to search to give someone a cheese because Packers lost and it was not, few positives to come by.
right.
Let's focus on who we are starting with.
I guess let's start with Jair. He played very well. I'm willing to start with Jair and give him one. I think you're right that a pick six does warrant an automatic cheese. Has been good all season thus far, except for the AJ Brown touchdown, but that's neither here nor there. He still had an interception that game. I think
And it's
that's
gonna happen too.
yeah. I think that's like the easiest go to. Here. Okay, here's my proposition. What if we do Malik, Jair, and Ibarre this week? And if Devontae Wyatt gets a sack this week, or is like really stuffing plays, et cetera, he is a lock next week. What is
See,
what is your opinion on that? Because I think like in the same way that Wyatt has been having a really good start to the year, so has Enagbare, and they both have been really good over the last 2 weeks. Is where I'm going with this. You know what I mean? And like
yes.
I agree with you that I think Malik Willis like deserves one. Not that you like said that, but I think we've talked about that before, like earlier in the week, that he deserves one. And so with Jordan Love probably coming back, I don't see how he gets one if he doesn't get one this week. You know what I mean? And I think he does deserve one if we're trying to like tell the story of the season through cheeses and things like that.
I think it's just telling the story of the game for him specifically.
Yeah.
He was a primary source of offense for this team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Wilson, I think I like giving our little honorable mentions of just looking back and you look at his offense, 85 all-purpose yards or whatever you want to call it. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's all-purpose.
Yeah.
Um, and stepped up when Josh Jacobs didn't have a great game. The receivers had made big plays, but Malik Willis's ability to not just make good throws and spread it out among the offense, it's hitting or design runs is a big part of his weaponry. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think your point of is he gonna have another chance to prove himself? We don't know. Hopefully, once Jordan Love is back, he's back for good, and injuries are set aside and it doesn't linger on too long. But I think Malik is, this is a 30-point game. And as much as the defense eventually came to be the story in the 8 sacks, and Jair obviously helping the case of giving the Packers a scoring lift in unlikely ways, Malik Willis is responsible for the offense looking like a competent offense, a functioning offense.
Right.
Um, so yeah, I think that is why he's a lock for sure for me.
Yeah.
Uh, to your Wyatt point, I don't want to make half measures in that way because what happens if he doesn't play? Like,
I
there's
know.
still like, you know what I mean? But this is where it's really tough because I think we're along the same lines of how it was the week before. Eric Wilson gets 8 snaps but plays like almost flawless football.
Right.
And I brought it up again on PFF. 22 snaps for Enigbari, and he had 3 pressures. You mentioned the stats, but I'm just gonna repeat them again. 3 pressures, 2 tackles, 2 sacks, 3 stops, 1 forced fumble. Like doing all that he can to be incredibly disruptive on the edge.
Hmm.
But Devontae Wyatt, like I think this, if anything, to make the case, as good as Enigbari's start has been, he's really asserted himself as a good third rotational edge rusher who can knock on the door to get more snaps, really.
Right.
Um, Devontae Wyatt's leading the team in sacks. He's got 3. You know, I mean, he had a
Yeah.
sack in the Colts game. He's a really good pass rushing defensive lineman. He doesn't have it all there in terms of beating linemen and stuffing the run like we kind of anticipate him being, like kind of more of an all around defensive lineman.
Right.
But that's pretty big, especially from that position. We just don't. We look at the edge rushers and maybe if throws are too or time in the pocket's too long, and you just kind of wear down the lineman in front of you. Maybe that's where defensive linemen will get off and beat their one on ones and stuff like that. But Devontae Wyatt's like all of this kind of momentum that we've heard of like what he could be, it's kind of coming together in a more realistic way now,
Yeah.
even if it's not perfect.
Right.
So it's probably why I would lean Wyatt, even though give we could go off book and give Enigbari a honorary cheese or some kind of distinction. We are the creators of this podcast, so we
What
can
if we
do
just
whatever
give
the
them
hell we
both one?
want.
Say fuck it.
Let's do it.
Yeah, because I don't think I can pick. Like they both just had such a good week, and they both have deserved one at this point. Like I think not that this means anything, just for the fun of our conversation, but it matters, right? Like I think Kingsley Enagbare has had such a good start to his season after, like you had said, being a rotational edge rusher for the majority of his career thus far, and is proving himself as a really solid rotational guy now. To like you said, he's pushing for snaps, and in a rotation that involves Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, and Lucas Van Ness, like he's making a case for himself to be out there more often than he is. I'm not saying he's better than any of those 3 guys, for sure not Gary or Preston, but like if he's pushing Lucas Van Ness for snaps off the edge, like by all means go for it. Like
Yeah.
he's just playing that well, and so we're breaking the rules. 4 cheeses to hand out this week. Malik Willis, Jair Alexander, Devontae Wyatt, and Kingsley Enagbare. Congrats to all that.
History has been made on the Talk of the Tundra podcast tonight, and you are the first to hear it.
That's right. So, all right, folks. Moving on to the matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. But before that, I guess before we get on to that matchup, a couple of roster moves to talk about. Or rather, just one. The Packers released tight end Johnny Lumpkin from their practice squad and re-signed Messiah Swinson from from Carolina's practice squad after he was released. I think this week. So with Swinson signing with the Panthers after the Packers had cut him, I think he was guaranteed like a 3 week salary or something with Carolina. That was like what happened, and then after that was over,
Mm.
he got cut. Packers pick him back up. So, uh, for familiar face, obviously, not too much that we knew about Jai Lumpkin, but Packers obviously must have liked him. Should they had if I can think, brought him back after cutting him.
2 jokes for you, rapid fire. Uh, Coming on the Messiah, too easy. It's too easy. Um,
Coming
What?
of the Messiah. Okay, got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it.
Second, it's a shame that they cut Johnny Lumpkin before Lumpkin Spice Latte season.
Oh
You
my
know what I mean?
god. Why?
Because I am me.
Also, lumpkin spice lattes are already here. I've had one this year already. They're pretty good. They're my one. I get one a year.
You get one a year.
I
You
get,
just buy
I
one
get one pumpkin.
PSL.
I get one PSL every season.
Where do you get it from? Do you
Starbucks.
randomly
No,
choose?
Starbucks.
Okay.
Like, cause like that's the pumpkin spice latte, right?
I
Like,
haven't heard of this place.
you're not missing much. No,
I
I
would.
I get one pumpkin spice latte, specifically from Starbucks every year. Because I just like it was my if you could believe it, it was my introduction to Starbucks back when I was in high school. It was like the first coffee I ever had.
Specifically pumpkin spice latte.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I had never had regular coffee before. I had a PSL.
PSL.
Yeah. So, but yeah,
Interesting.
Johnny Lumpkin, goodbye. Messiah, welcome. Now
Welcome to the Messiah.
I stop it. Bow to Leper Messiah. That's a Metallica joke for all you Metallica fans
There
out
you
there.
go.
All right. On to the Vikings game. A little serious history for y'all. Packers are 65, 57, and 3 against the Minnesota Vikings. 1-1 in their last two playoff duels with the Vikings. When was the last time they lost to the Vikings in the playoffs?
The only time that they lost to the Vikings was the Randy Moss Moon game.
And the last time they played them
Disgusting.
was the Joe Webb game.
Joe Webb game, yeah, of
Got
course.
it, got it,
Yes.
got it, got it.
Tony Dungy. I remember vividly. I don't want to go sidetrack
You can
even more than I
sidetrack.
already have. Remember vividly Tony Dungy being like, Joe Webb has got it. He's going to be really good in this game. And he's like,
Can,
at
can
halftime, he
you?
just goes, I don't know what I thought about Joe Webb.
That is a crazy Tony Dungy impression.
I don't
That
know.
is
That
a
was more Cleveland
crazy
Brown.
impression.
You know,
Um,
I had to break out a Tony Dungy
I was at that
impression.
game.
You were.
Yep. We
That was a good
my
game.
high school golf team was was like volunteering, handing out things at the gates. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
nice.
little tidbit.
Four.
Uh last year the Vikings beat the Packers at Lambeau 24-10 in what was not a close matchup. Never really felt close. Kirk Cousins goes down that game too, I think late. And the Packers go to Minnesota and put the smack down on them 33-10 in Week 17 to split the season
That was
series.
so good.
That was a good game, obviously. Packers are 3-2 when playing the Vikings at Lambeau during the Matt LaFleur era. Um, and then the season series between Minnesota and Green Bay has been split the last 4 years, the longest stretch in their rivalry. Um, and that stat comes from Packers Dope Sheet show. So shout out them. Um, all right, on to the injury report for this week. It is long for both teams. Starting with the Packers, Jair Alexander was limited with a quad injury. So was Kenny Clark with a toe injury. Jordan Love obviously limited with his knee injury. Luke Musgrave has a quad injury. He was limited. Jaden Reed has a calf and a quad injury. He was limited. And Carrington Valentine was limited with a ankle injury. All those players were limited both Wednesday and Thursday. Jordan Morgan with a shoulder injury. He did not participate Wednesday or Thursday in practice. Um, Full participants after having a designation earlier in the week were Elton Jenkins, Tucker Kraft, Josh Myers, and Zach Tom. Devontae Wyatt does crop up on the injury report as a limited participant in Thursday's practice after not being listed on Wednesday. So, a couple of things to note there. Jordan Love still limited. Uh, Most of everybody expects him to play. Uh, this would be his second, third game missed. Um,
Yeah.
so
But um 3 weeks tomorrow as we are recording, since he obviously suffered the injury, which Adam Schefter still confused by the timeline of what 3 to 4 weeks means.
Yeah,
3 to 4 are numbers,
yeah.
and there's no other number in between them.
No. Well, there's actually infinite numbers in between them, so
Well, you get whole numbers.
integers. Um, but with that being said, all the videos look like he's gonna play. He's running around, throwing on the run. Looks good. He's got the brace on his knee and everything. So I think most of Packers fandom is expecting Jordan Love to play on Sunday. I'm not saying it's a must-win game because like there's just no such thing as those right now. But the Vikings starting off 4-0 and having a game up on the Packers and having already beat some pretty tough teams, it seems like it's a pretty must-win game. Like then at this point, they both teams would be 3-1. You'd be leading the division. Um, Along with the Vikings or the Lions should they win. And it just would be better to win this game than to lose it. Obviously, hashtag analysis. But the Vikings injury report looks as such. Jordan Addison, their sophomore wide receiver, is limited or was limited in Wednesday and Thursday's practice. The Vikings did a walkthrough on Wednesday, not an actual practice, just so FYI. These are approximations according to the injury report. Um, Camus Gruger Hill, their linebacker, had a knee injury. He was limited. Josh Oliver, their tight end, has a wrist injury. He was limited in both days. And then Garrett Bradbury was a limited participant in practice on Thursday. Jonathan Bullard, their D lineman, had a knee injury. He was a DMP on Thursday. Christian Darasaw was a DMP, their tackle.
Mm,
He did not participate. Neither did Ivan Pace Jr., their linebacker, with an ankle injury. He was a DMP both days. So was Jay Ward, their safety, with a knee injury. He was a DMP both days. Notably, Sam Darnold is a full participant um, both days in practice,
yes.
despite having his knee looked at during this past Sunday's game against the Texans. Uh, I believe his MRI came back as sort of like a little bone bruise, but no structural damage to any of the ligaments in his knee, so he should be just fine. And then Dallas Turner was a full participant in practice today with a knee injury, so there's that. So you looked like you had something to say before I started the Vikings injury report. Did I interrupt you?
No, I thought I had something to say, and it escaped my mind. Continue.
All right, so let's hop into it. Jordan Love playing this week. If you could believe it, he was limited. That is the joke going around Packers beat Twitter at the moment.
Yes.
Um, the Monday update from Matt LaFleur was that Love's work on Sunday before the game was mostly for conditioning purposes and not a test to see if he actually could play. And he is day to day throughout the week, obviously, as we've seen. So that's really all there is to it. Jordan Love, limited. He would still have, I guess, one game. Like if he comes back next week, it would still be beneficial for the Packers to have not put him on IR. Um, Versus putting him in IR and then he'd for sure be out until the week 6 game. Um, but like I said, I think everyone's assumption is that he's going to play because Jordan Love said on Sunday that he was basically just seeing how he felt and thrown, and he thought he was pretty close to playing. So if he feels pretty close to playing, I'd imagine the doctors are pretty close to clearing him. And then if that's the case, he'll make his home debut uh, this season against the Vikings on Sunday. But I guess what do you think, Jordan? Do you think he's playing this week?
I think
Do
yes.
you and your doctor degree think he's playing this week? Jordan Tresky, MD.
My Jordan Trusky MD. Um, I am trying to think of jokes, and it's too late for me to think of like coherent jokes. I think he's gonna play. I think to echo what we kind of talked about going into the Titans game last week, we were both on the side of caution. Give it another week, see what you have. You already kind of we were feeling very optimistic about what it looked like with Malik Willis under center coming out of the Colts win, obviously. And I just felt like with the win over the Titans and the way that they looked, it's weird that you're playing with house money in that sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Even going into a big divisional game, I think your point of this is a must-win game. It's before your season schedule really starts picking up in terms of just like the opponents that you have to play, or not just the opponents that you have to play, but the level of opponents that you have to play. Um, if he's ready, it's ultimately it's his call. Like as much as it is the medical staff and everything like that. Like this is not an injury that is he's gonna wake up and be like, oh, it's not there. Like it's gonna be steadily improving. It's not gonna be perfect, but if it's something close to a number that resembles like 90% or higher, Jordan Love is gonna play.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of been where not to as I say this, Adam Stenavich was meeting with reporters today. This is from Matt Schneeman. On a scale of 1 to 10, how limited has Jordan Love been impressed
I
this
saw
week?
this.
Adam Stenavich, it would be too limiting to put a number on it. So I'm going to put a number on it because no one else will. But like if he's 90% or higher in terms of just like how he feels, if he feels he can ultimately do the kind of throws, play the kind of game that he feels comfortable doing and is
Hmm.
not bothered by what he has to do, then you're going to play him. Yeah, I mean,
Yep,
it's that simple.
it is.
So yeah, I fully expect we see Jordan Love. If we don't, I would not be disappointed, but it does change a little bit of, we're gonna be waiting on details of like why was he cleared? Why was
Right.
what it's gonna be, but it's gonna be shrouded in secrecy. They're not gonna give
Oh
out
no.
like why
God no.
he was,
God no.
whatever.
Um, yeah, and to your point, like if Jordan Love plays this week, he's not 100%. Like he's gonna be still in probably some pain, regardless of if he plays or not. Come Sunday, and so mitigating that pain is gonna be the most important thing. And if it's not a huge problem, then that probably mean he'll be playing on Sunday. So
Yeah.
that's one of the bigger narratives coming into the game. The second biggest is the Aaron Jones uh, return game, revenge game. I don't want to call it revenge, but Aaron Jones returns to Lambeau. He penned a very, very nice article in the Players Tribune um, this past week. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's a real tearjerker, but obviously former Packer and beloved player by fans. I would be frankly shocked if he got booed on Sunday when they come back in. Um, in Minnesota so far this season, having a great year. Fifth highest rated running back per PFF, 42 carries, 228 rushing yards, which goes out to 5.4 rushing yards per attempt, one rushing touchdown, 12 catches on 14 targets for 97 yards and a receiving touchdown. And he has 6.9 yards per touch. That ranks sixth amongst running backs, and 325 yards from scrimmage is fifth amongst running backs in the league. So is that yeah? So regardless, Aaron Jones having a good season, and it's I won't say bittersweet, but I think it makes the 2 hours post Josh Jacobs signing where all of the Packers fans were like, "Holy moly, we're gonna have Josh Jacobs and Aaron Jones in the same backfield." Makes it a little sour, just because like you're seeing what he still has left in the tank, which I don't think anybody really doubted. It was more of a matter of how much he can get paid to do that kind of thing with the Packers and that whole contract situation, etc. Um, but yeah, he's having a great time. He's having a great year so far, and I don't want to say I'm happy for him because he's playing for the Vikings, but I'm pretty happy he's doing well and is in good spirits it seems. And he spoke so well of the Packers and hasn't been like not to drop names, but like Devondre Campbell or Zadarius Smith or these other guys that had left um, on similar terms and conditions regarding their contracts not being worth it for the Packers to pick up.
Yeah, I think it's, it is definitely bittersweet. I rather, as much as I am liking the Josh Jacobs experience, there is something very exciting about watching Aaron Jones play. I think part of it is that he was this homegrown draft story of he's a fifth round pick
Mm-hmm.
and he turned into the he is ranks third all time on the Packers all time rushing list. He was very much a heartbeat to this team for a very long time. And plus too, like we we think that we're on the other side of it, but it is as we were kind of twisting the wind with the Aaron Rodgers experience and how that saga was unfolding for the last 2 years that he was in Green Bay. Aaron Jones had no problem being Mr. Green Bay as much as AJ Dillon was
Never,
Mayor of
never.
Door County. He was being the Jerome. He's like the best that he's to call him a hype man gives off the connotation that he's like a really good role player, which you could say he's like a super duper role player. Yeah, I mean he's not
Yeah,
like he's a star running back, but you don't. No one thinks of him as the top running back in the league or top three, top five,
yeah.
maybe.
He was never held in the same regard as like Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, any of those guys. Saquon Barkley. He was never held in that same regard, despite having pretty similar production numbers. Uh,
Just a super efficient runner
yep,
in so many different ways. But
yep.
like to to do what he did on the field for so long, and really like the best stretch that he played as a Packer was the last 5 games in his career. You know, like we could just keep going on and on about what he meant on the field because Lord knows we talked a lot about it at the time, but to be that guy that was kind of marching the drum of or beating the drum of we're still going to be good. Like we believe in Jordan Love and yeah, it was one season and but it there were a lot of doubters of what this Packers team could be after Aaron Rodgers left and the good Aaron uh sorry. Aaron Jones was the
Oh,
one that was the one that was kind of whether you believed it or not at the time, he was the one that was saying that nothing's changed with how this team is approaching success or how we're building towards something. So yeah, it does suck. It just sucks. Like I'm glad he's doing well. It's gonna be really weird seeing him play in a Vikings uniform in Lambeau. Um, and it's gonna be weird to see the Packers probably struggle to contain him because I think he's just gonna have a good game. I'm not totally sold on the running game, um, or the run defense. Kind of locking in even after an encouraging performance against the Titans. I think that was more so based on just how the game went or slipped from their hands after the Jair pick six. But yeah, it's bittersweet. 2 games out of the year, you're going to be kind of faced with these feelings of a guy that you rooted for a lot and still means a hell of a lot to this team as they try to vie for a Super Bowl title. But he's still really productive. And
yeah. And
it'll be,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, it's going to be on the defense to kind of, you saw it a lot in practice, and now this is what it's going to look like in a game. And
Mm-hmm.
he's going to, as much as he's kind of like this Mr. Nice guy, he has like a killer mentality
Oh, for sure.
to him. He's an athlete, obviously,
Yeah.
but
Well, I think that's evidenced in all the games he played against the Cowboys. Like, grew up
yes,
Texas kid, went to TCU, I think, or
UTEP.
UTEP. Yeah, went to UTEP. His dad, I think, like grew up near TCU or whatever it was. Dad was a Cowboys fan, regardless. And I mean, how many times did we see Aaron Jones waving goodbye to Dallas? Right? Like, I think he just
As
has, like you
recently
said,
as last year,
exactly. So
literally.
yeah, and so yeah, same idea. I think it's going to be tough to keep him down because I think he's just going to have that extra juice going into the game. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Lambeau late from Aaron Jones if he scores.
I believe he has said as much that he's still leaping if he scores.
Did he?
Yes.
It's gonna
So
again bittersweet.
you know what? More power to him.
Yeah, he's one of the guys I just can't. I can't have any ill will towards. He's just a great player, great guy. Always represented the Packers well, and just is a franchise player all around. But yeah, it's going to be tough to make sure they stop. And I would argue that the reason, not the reason, but one of the big reasons the Vikings are having such a good year to start and starting off 3-0 is because they have Aaron Jones as their starting running back versus is it Ty Chandler as their backup, the other guy? Like they went from Alexander
Yeah,
Bassett and Ty Chandler to now Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler, and that's just a better player. And so,
yeah.
like, as much as it is Sam Darnold having a resurgent season, which we'll talk about in a minute, and Justin Jefferson existing, but then Jordan Addison's been hobbled most of the year, and Tyler, why am I forgetting his
TJ,
name?
TJ.
TJ Hawkinson. I
I
was totally blanked
keep
on his
talking,
name.
make your point, but maybe he is or Tyler, born Tyler.
Maybe. Regardless, TJ Hawkinson.
He's a Thomas James.
Regardless, TJ Hawkinson being on the PUP list and not available to play, like their offense is less than what it should be essentially,
Yeah,
and it's it's been surprising for sure. And so Aaron Jones, I think, is a big part of that, providing that boost and just being that locker room guy to a bunch of veterans. Honestly, like this team isn't very young. They have some young players, like Jordan Addison's a young player, but I mean, I think Jalen Naylor is kind of also a little young, but other than that, they got a lot of veterans on this team. They don't really have a whole lot of rookie contracts going around, and so it's a lot of guys that are kind of rallying around being veterans and trying to make this team improve to the NFL. That they're not going to be a 4.5 win team. They're looking to win more than
yeah.
that, and so I don't know where they end up at the end of the season. But if they continue like this, and if they continue with the energy that they have, it'll probably be double digits for sure. So
I would think so.
yeah, let's talk about that Sam Darnold having an absolute revival of his career this year. I think speaks a lot to Kevin O'Connell's ability as a quarterback whisperer and what he's able to do with quarterbacks, similar in a way that the Brewers are able to reform fallen out pitchers and and only off or only defensive catchers, I should say. Both of those. My apologies, but he's having a great year. 53 of 78, a 67.9 completion percentage, 657 yards, 8 touchdowns, just first in the NFL, to 2 interceptions, a fifth highest in the NFL, 73.5 quarterback rating, and a 117.3 passer rating. On track with his career high and ranks second in the league thus far. Fourth highest average time to throw, 3.03 seconds. And despite that, he has the fifth highest pressure rate of QBs, 39.3%. 7.7 air yards per attempt, which ranks ninth in the league. So he's not even dink and dunking his way to success. He's pushing the ball down the field a little bit, and I think this is something that we haven't seen with him in any of his stops along the way. He was never like this in New York with the Jets. He was not really didn't really have a whole lot of success in Carolina with the Panthers. And then last year he kind of had a little bit of success in some spots snaps with the 49ers. But now we're seeing like this is kind of what Sam Darnold was eventually or was like initially advertised as, just like a guy that can go win you some games, and he's doing that right now for the Vikings.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I don't know if there's revisionist history already happening with Sam Darnold, but I think it's just a matter of as we are the Packers are seeing firsthand. Quarterback is a very fickle position.
Yeah,
No one knows anything in terms of evaluation. There are some like certain things that you can imagine, and I think Sam Darnold, third overall pick, 2018 draft, goes to, if not the worst, one of the worst pipelines of quarterbacks
yeah.
um
It has not
ever
been good for that
assembled.
franchise ever.
Yeah, they pin their hopes on Aaron Rodgers to save that, at least for the time being. Then gets dealt to the second worst um modern example of quarterbacks It's been a revolving door since Cam Newton,
Hmm.
including bringing back Cam Newton to fulfill the revolving door.
Yeah, I saw that. He was trying out, right? Not necessarily a.
No, he after he got released from the Patriots, he went back to Carolina.
Oh, that's right. But then he's trying
Yeah.
out again now.
Ugh,
That
Jesus.
yeah, that was a headline this week.
Well, more power to him.
Yeah.
He's doing things that I can't. So already a better athlete than I am.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just I don't know. Like, it, am I still gonna believe in Sam Darnold to be this kind of awakened quarterback? Not really, but for the time being, like I think it's perfect scenario. He was always gonna be the guy that I thought was gonna start for them, regardless of the JJ McCarthy pick, and obviously him getting hurt. Just it was by default.
Made that decision
uh,
a lot easier.
yeah, it made that decision a lot easier. And for what this team is at right now, as you mentioned, it's a really good point. Is that it's not a young team, especially offensively. Like going through their football reference pages, a lot of these guys are in the prime of their careers, including someone as great as Justin Jefferson, who's only 25, remarkably. But Aaron Jones is kind of the old head of this offense,
Justin
and
Jefferson is 25.
Justin Jefferson is 25.
Oh my God. That
Yeah,
doesn't
so
seem right at all.
we probably have like 10 more years of him just kind of tormenting this Packers defense. Um, but yeah, like this is it's not like it's more seasoned with the players that they have. And it's if it's not a win now at like to the level like the 49ers have built, it's kind of like middle tier. So it should not be as much as the Vikings start is certainly surprising in terms of just being undefeated and leading the NFC North and all the good things that are coming out of Minnesota. It's not like this ragtag of I'm already regretting my point that I'm trying to make. But it's not like this young up and coming it's not like the Packers last year
Right.
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
This team has a lot of miles under their belt, and Sam Darnold is kind of indicative of right place, right time, right environment. I think that is ultimately what is catapulting him to the kind of start that he's had so far. And it's not like he's lighting the world on fire, but it's not like in like, oh my God, he's setting record books or he obviously has
Right.
8 touchdowns, and that helps that you have Justin Jefferson who can gritty past that. Who, was that the Texans game where it was like 97 yards or something like that?
Yeah, that was the Texans game.
Um, it just helps to have someone. Justin Jefferson is easily the first, second, third best wide receiver that he's consistently thrown to.
Yeah.
I'm not counting the 49ers stint because,
He wasn't there that long. Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, it just helps having talent. And that
Yeah.
kind of helps you find your own ceiling.
Right. If you could believe it, during that entire time that you were talking, I was trying to find stats on the pass rush, and I literally, as I was about to complain about not finding it, I just found it. So let's go. To your point about or to the point earlier about that Sam Darnold has had been pressured on the fifth or no on 39.3% of his throws. Just a holy moly! I'm sorry. Let me start this over. Darnold has the fifth highest pressure rate at 39.3%, meaning he's getting pressured a whole lot. Fifth most in the NFL, if you can believe it. That is because across the Vikings line, Christian Darrisaw ranks 49th out of 59th in tackles, according to PFF.
Who they just signed to a big extension over the offseason, too, like
Yep.
weeks
Their
before the start of the season.
their right tackle. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase this. Christian Darrisaw has 7 pressures. He's the 49th ranked tackle um, in the NFL. Their left guard, Blake Brandel, has 1. He ranks second out of all guards. Garrett Bradbury, their center, has 10 pressures allowed, 32nd out of 33 centers. Ed Ingram, their right guard, has 10 pressures, ranks 60th amongst guards, and Brian O'Neill, their right tackle has 5 pressures allowed, and ranks 39th out of 59 tackles. Their only plus guard or lineman is their left guard. Kenny Clark has had Garrett Bradbury in a blender for years and is probably going to
Yes.
continue that on Monday. Like this has been a talking point all week long. Of like, all right, this is the week that Kenny Clark gets back on track because he just gets to feast on Garrett Bradbury all week long again. And so,
Yeah.
like, I think that's going to be a big part of the game to watch is how well this pass rush can get off the line again, because whoever can win the pass rush game and whatever team can mitigate it the best, I think is going to win the game. For example, like for context, Rasheed Walker only has 5 pressures allowed this season. He's ranked 22nd out of 59. Elton Jenkins has 2, ranked 7th out of 63 for guards. Josh Myers has 2, ranked 4th for centers. Sean Ryan has 3, ranked 13th, and Zach Tom has 0, first highest rated tackle in the NFL. And so, like, if the Packers can really keep these guys in check, keep this Brian Flores defense in check, it's going to be a huge win for them, because we'll talk about the Brian Flores thing in a minute. But if, I guess, let me backtrack up a little bit. If Rashawn Gary and Devontae Wyatt and Kenny Clark and Enigbare and Lucas Van Ness and Preston Smith, if they can all get home again like they did last week and have another 8 sack game like they did against the Lewiston Titans, this game will have a similar result, especially if Jordan Love is playing at home. And so that's what we expect again out of this Packers team. Get after the quarterback. And I think that'll be one of the biggest things is Sam Darnold hasn't really had a whole lot of success over the middle. Uh, in his like first 3 games with the Vikings, that's not where he's having success. He's having success over the top and beating guys deep. That's why his average pass yards are so high at nearly 7. And so if he need like receivers need time to get downfield, right? Well, you're not going to have time if your line can't cover or can't block 4 or 5 blitzers. Well, 4 or 5 guys, and including the blitzer. And so
Yeah.
that'll be something to watch this game for sure. Is that how does this line hold up? It's going to be a hostile environment for the Vikings in general. The fans are going to be loud, especially if Jordan Love plays, especially because it's a Vikings game and the whole 9 yards, right? Like this is going to be a competitive game. It being noon on a Sunday is not gonna say like criminal, but it's especially because it's like week 4. But this will be a really good game. I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of the more highly seen games this weekend across the country. But yeah, it's whoever wins the pass rush game, whoever can keep their quarterback upright the most, I think wins this game.
And to your point, like I'm just looking at the Vikings kind of target share. Justin Jefferson has had the most targets on the team, unsurprisingly, with 21. Aaron Jones has 14. So between the two of them, they're responsible for half of the 72 targets that Sam Darnold has thrown.
Right, and
Or
so then you throw in Jair Alexander, who we'll talk about this matchup later, but then throw in Jair, and hopefully they can figure out a way to stop Aaron Jones, and whatever linebacker guys on him can stop him in the passing game. But if you can stop those 2 guys, which is a hard task to do, you're going to be sitting in a good spot.
and it's just a way like this is where Jordan Addison struggles, and there's a lot there, obviously. Not having TJ Hawkinson, like they're doing what's most impressive with the start is that they're still not as good as they could be. They're not full strength, clearly on offense. Like they're missing a key link into that offense with Hawkinson obviously hurt and recovering from the injury they suffered last year. So on one hand, you're looking at that and you're kind of salivating of like, well, if you just take Justin Jefferson away, which is like saying it doesn't mean anything because he's the best wide receiver in the planet. He could easily chew up Jair Alexander in this matchup. and it'd still be a big problem for the Packers, obviously. But I do think how they approach blitzing in general, we saw Jeff Hafley kind of put his foot on the gas when needed, but if this Vikings O line is not as suspect as they have been to start the year, what does that look like when you're trying to get after Darnold and make things more uncomfortable for him and not give him the daylight to kind of air it out and beat you over the top that way?
Right. Right. Exactly. Since we keep talking about him, let's keep talking about Justin Jefferson and Jair Alexander and that rivalry. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that Jefferson has like one catch for like 12 yards against Jair in their entire like matchup history, which is pretty incredible. It's also been a lot
I
of
don't know where that would be. Like I'm just gonna say, I got Jair's. He did not play in the game in Minnesota.
nope. They had a they've been like ships in the night,
Yes, notoriously.
notoriously. So
And the game that the Vikings played in Lambeau last year, Alexander, I put this as Jefferson, but PFF does not do like specific matchups stats.
they do.
They just say they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll find it real quick.
You find it. This is old man starting. But anyway, in that game, Alexander allowed 6 catches on 7 targets, 84 receiving yards, and a touchdown in that loss. It was not great.
The one at
Uh,
Lambeau, right? You're talking about.
at Lambeau, the only game that Alexander played because he was suspended for the New Year's Eve win over
Mm.
the Vikings. Um, as you find the stats, I have a long um Twitter post from Alec Lewis, who is the a Vikings beat writer for the Athletic. I'm gonna try to parse this down, but he basically was asking, "What do you think of Jair Alexander not playing against you and the kind of the rivalry and everything like that?" Um, the question was, "Does Jair try to get in your head a little bit more?" Justin Jefferson says he tries to. He definitely tries to. I mean, he reminds me of my big brother that always just tries to knick-knack every single thing, trying to play the head game, trying to hit you a little extra or push you a little extra than normal people do. I understand it's a tactic to get inside my head and to mess up my game plan and what I'm doing, but it doesn't really work. I understand he has some help over the top sometimes. He likes to do the jump jam. He likes to put his hands on, disrupt the route. We have a plan for that, and I can't wait to go up against it, honestly. Um, he basically was just saying like Jair Alexander thinks more of this matchup than I do with him.
Right. Justin Jefferson didn't play last in that game last year. Okay, in Minnesota or in Lambeau. That's why.
Oh, that's right. That was when he was hurt.
Yep. Yeah. So he didn't
So
play.
that's even worse.
Yep. He didn't play that game. They never they don't really play that often. Is the issue, but um,
Yeah.
yeah, they do have a couple of those coverage matchups for the game in Minnesota. Um, you said Jair missed, so it doesn't matter. I was going to look at that anyways again. So again, they didn't play last year, but 2 years ago they did the gritty on the Jair did the gritty in front of Justin Jefferson as they're trying to make the playoffs, and that didn't work either. So,
Yeah.
but it should be good. I think like Jair really loves this matchup, as you just said, like, and which is very funny because Justin Jefferson tries to downplay it and everything, and I think it was Aaron Nagler, uh, posted a picture of I don't remember what game it was. It might have been that same game at Lambeau when the Packers are trying to make their run towards the playoffs in 22. But Justin Jefferson like took his helmet off and threw it at the ground. He was so upset that he didn't have like a catch or something. It's like I think like just the competitive part in him matters, and it's yeah, it's tough. It'll be
Yeah.
fun for sure. But this is what Jeff Hafley had to say about it. Quote, it's our job to put our best players in a position to make plays. So if it's our job to put our best players on their best players, then we need to figure out how to do that. I mean, I'm not just gonna walk into the game and say the scheme is just strong enough to stop that great player. That's just not how I think. We got to figure out how to stop their best players each week, and if that means doing something a little bit different, then it's our job to do that. I mean, man, what a great quote to have coming off of Jeff Barry, who would throw anybody on Justin Jefferson except for Jair, right? Like I
Yeah.
think that's just a really awesome thing to hear as a fan, and wanting to hear something different from the defensive coordinator is just like great. We're actually gonna put the guy that should be covering Justin Jefferson on Justin Jefferson rather than like Eric Stokes or Rasul Douglas. No slight to those guys, but like Jair and should be on Justin Jefferson all the time.
Yeah. That's why he's one of the highest paid quarterbacks.
That's right. That's right. So I think the last point we have to make, I think, is the biggest, honestly, and that is Brian Flores's defense has been absolutely a hell chamber this this season thus far. Vikings defense has the most total pressures with 56 so far this year. Ranks eighth in pressure rate. Ranks third in blitz rate at 38.6% and ranks first in total sacks with 16. Opposing QBs average just 2.78 seconds for their time to throw. Further, the Vikings have allowed the second fewest rushing yards and the fourth lowest yards per carry. I do think there's context in that, and I don't think Joe Mixon played a lot last week. And if he wasn't, he was hobbled, and
Yes, you're
no
correct.
Christian McCaffrey, and they were going against Devin Singletary for the Giants week 1, so not the most dynamic of running backs thus far they've had to face. Um,
Yes.
and they've only allowed one rushing TD, obviously outside that, and overall the Vikings have allowed just 10 points per game, second lowest in the NFL. With all of that being said, there's been a lot of talk about how Brian Flores has been disguising a lot of his defenses so far this year, where he'll stack the box, go 8 in the box, and then 5 of those guys will drop out. It'll be a 3-man rush. And I forget who it was. I think it was one of the guys on the Athletic Football pod had a video where they had Harrison Smith down at the line, looking like he's ready to blitz, making it look like he was. And then as soon as the ball snapped, he just sprints backwards to get back into coverage as like a deep safety. And like that's just putting guys in a blender for just trying to figure out the reads and what the defense looks like. And so there's going to be a lot of mix-ups. There's going to be a lot of disguises. But the silver lining is that for last year, when defenses were disguising their coverage and switching into um, a different scheme, a different like just a different coverage. Jordan Love's EPA was like the best in the league in the entire league. He was doing very well against disguised coverages and was beating them seemingly with ease. So if he plays, I think he has an advantage in that he'll be able to recognize those as the ball is snapped and make the proper adjustments on where to go with the ball. The only thing I'm kind of worried about is that he's going to be rusty, right? He hasn't played in 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. And so how this offense is able to get around this Brian Flores defense. Like I think Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson just have to have a better, not a better, but keep up their production this week because I mean, hey, if the Vikings run defense is that good, this is the week to show it. This is the first time they're going up against, excuse me, a real running back room versus the lackluster ones they've had in the past couple of weeks. Like Cam Akers wasn't anything last week, and all respect to Jordan Mason in San Francisco after his explosive week 1. He hasn't been much since then. And then Devin Singletary is pretty. I'm not going to say washed, but he's not in the top half of the league in running backs. And so,
No.
I mean, if the this is the Packers' chance to showcase that they are a dominant running team, even with Jordan Love, and have a true balanced attack to say, hey, you think you're that good at stopping the run? Let's see it.
Yeah, it's going to be very important for the run game to kind of keep the engine going and avoid stalled out drives. Josh Jacobs obviously has a little bit more motivation to bounce back from the kind of lackluster game they had last week. Emmanuel Wilson has, more motivation to get more snaps based on what he did last week. Jordan Love is obviously the biggest X factor, whoever is going to be under center. I'm just presuming it's Jordan Love of, going against a very highly qualified, almost overqualified defense coordinator like Brian Flores, who has this team played in the kind of way like we saw the fingerprints of what this could be or the blueprint for this last year before everything fell apart after the Kirk Cousins injury. And it's just all there again. I mean, Brian Flores is a very when he got that job, it just made sense that he's just going to be this kind of mad scientist with how he approaches, um, operating a defense, building up defense game plans, how it looks in the modern NFL, and how we look at like the Fangio tree, or you know, we're kind of getting different um schemes and different flavors of rather than just these kind of same systems that you copycat all across the league.
Mm-hmm.
Having someone like Brian Flores, who was an NFL head coach, whether you think he was a good one or not, doesn't really matter. He was an experienced NFL head coach and is in that job in part because of having to deal with a Dolphins owner that doesn't know jack crap. So,
Right.
um, yeah, like I think for him, he's kind of the perfect guy to really just go all out and play a very exotic defense. And this is a defense too. Like I think we had a lot. There's a lot of questions of the roster management and a lot of the personnel decisions that the GM and with the Vikings that has made because it hasn't. There hasn't been a clear game plan. It's kind of doing the taking from one kiddie pool to the other pool, or you know what I'm trying to say. I don't know what the hell that was. It's getting late. Anyway, he's kind of doing more future moves versus win now moves, like the Hawkinson trade or
Yeah.
kind of going all out and stuff like that. But they invested heavily in that defense. They moved on
Mm-hmm.
from Daniil Hunter, bringing Jonathan Greenard
Yep.
or Greenard.
Yeah.
A lot of edge guys, a lot of guys from the Texans. Now that I think about it, with Blake Cashman,
Mm-hmm.
one of their middle linebackers. Andrew Van Ginkel came from Miami to Minnesota.
Yeah. And he's been a revelation for them. He's been so good for them.
Yeah, like they have again to add to the point of they have just experienced guys, and when you kind of just look at it on paper as I did, and just look at who's that? What are they? Who's their quarterback? It's like done, done, done. They're not going to be anything special. It's like no, they have guys that one they were in the case of the Houston guys, they won a playoff game last year. Are kind of operating the same style of season that they had last year, where no one really thought much of them, and they start immediately proving the doubters wrong.
Right.
And I just think that's kind of there's this perfect mix of right place, right time with a lot of things going on with the Vikings, and the defense is just I would say easily top result of that.
Oh, for sure. 100%. 100%. All right. Players to watch. Fantasy guys. Is it my turn to go first?
It can be if you'd like.
I think it is. I think you started week one, so then it was me, then it was you, then it was me. Yeah. All right. My fantasy player to watch is going to be for the Vikings, Aaron Jones. Gotta pick Aaron Jones.
Oh.
I think he's gonna have a decent week. Hopefully not too big of a game. Get your touchdown, jump in the stands, and then hopefully quiet the rest of the game.
Um, I want to go Justin Jefferson because he's the
Because
best
obviously,
player, obviously, but probably the best player on the field going into it.
yeah,
I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think that's an overstatement. No,
I'm going to actually go though with Sam Darnold
as your other guy. Oh no.
as my only guy.
Oh, I thought you said you're taking Justin Jefferson. Got it, got it,
I
got it.
was going to, but now that I'm thinking about it, I just want to see what it looks like. I want to see what it's obviously Justin Jefferson is going to factor into how good of his performance will be, but
Right.
You know, how does can he just keep doing what he's been doing? And
Mm-hmm.
maybe he does. I don't know. But I am always, whether it benefits me as a Packer fan or not, I'm always intrigued by guys that kind of figure it out with a new team or new environment. And let's just hope the Packers just say no. Sam Darnold's not that good yet.
That'd be ideal, right?
Of course.
Um, your Packer.
Oh, Jair.
Ooh, going Jair again.
It's the matchup that he
Wants the most.
wants the most. It's in division. It's the in the division. You're gonna face Justice Jefferson hopefully 2 times a year. It's your home turf. It it would be a heck of a day to continue what you did last week
Yeah,
and just shut him down.
that'd be nice.
Yeah,
I'm here for it.
yeah.
My Packer is going to be Christian Watson. Let's see what he can
Hmm.
do. See if he can get that big long touchdown against them.
Minnesota corners are not great
No,
historically.
no, don't think they're playing that well this year either. I could be mistaken, but I don't think they are.
I mean, I don't think you'd be mistaken because that's just how it always is.
Yeah.
Um,
Your fantasy player.
this one is tough for. I'm not sure why.
I know mine.
Maybe because it's you go first then.
Going Josh Jacobs. Let's see if I have a big
That's
day. Get a touchdown. Does he have one yet this year? I don't think so.
no,
Yeah.
no, he is
Let's get
not.
his first. Who's it going to be, Jordan?
Jaden Reed.
Good choice. Good choice.
Yeah, he's just. This could be a really big. If Jaden Reed is like hitting all cylinders, making plays, doing a little bit of what he's done the last couple of weeks, but just like on tilt, as the kids say. Um, I think he's a good answer to how the Vikings are going to try to come into Lambeau and run roughshod off the over the Packers.
Get that. Get that. Score predictions. I'm going 27-21 Packers.
27-21. Interesting.
Yeah. Packers end their unbeaten streak, go into a tie for first place in the NFC North, some place that nobody thought they'd be after Jordan Love goes down at the end of week 1. What's it going to be, Jordan?
Vikings 20, Packers 23.
All right. There she sits. All right, folks. Thank you for listening. We'll be back in your podcast feeds after the game on Sunday. It's a noon game this week. So, again, back in your podcast feeds Monday morning at the latest. Um, Check out all the GSPN podcasts. Uh, Next time you hear from us, the Brewers will be 24 hours away from starting their playoff series against TBD. So go check out Cruising for a Bruising as they prep all of their stuff for the Brewers postseason run and hopefully to the World Series and what has been a pretty exciting season. So go check out Adam and Andrew on Cruising for a Bruising. GSPN.info for all things GSPN. $8 a month for the premium Substack, which gets you articles, GSPN After Darks, and ad-free podcasts for all the GSPN things. Just right into your RSS feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So, as always, check out the Bucks feed with Ty and Rohan and Jordan and Adam, and then make time for this as well. So, all right, folks, super simple stuff. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the game this week, and Jordan, thank you.
Thank you.